On the 16th of April 1945, 30 nautical miles north of Okinawa, USS Laffey, an Allen M. Sumner-class destroyer under Commander Frederick Julian Beckton, holds Radar Picket Station No. 1. Alongside are LCS L-51 and LCS L-116 small gunboats tasked with bolstering anti-aircraft fire. The station's air search picture reaches on the order of 75 miles in typical conditions, with broader early warning coming from the Picket network. Dawn breaks cold, the sea calm, as lookouts scan for the first glints of approaching aircraft. Across 80 minutes, more than 20 Japanese attackers, dive bombers and kamikaze press their assault. Laffey's 6, 5-inch, 38 dual-purpose mounts, directed by the Mark 37 fire control system and paired with 40mm Bofors on Mark 51 directors, 20mm Oerlikons guns form a layered defense. The morning sky fills with the stutter of gunfire and the distant drone of radial engines. The Okinawa campaign hinges on early warning. Radar picket destroyers like Laffey stand as sentinels, exposed to massed raids to protect the fleet off Hagushi beaches. Station No. 1, the northernmost post, faces the heaviest pressure. On the 15th of April, Laffey assumes station and repels probing attacks, her gunners calibrating fire control radars. By the 16th, a major raid coalesces. Over 20 aircraft, VAL, dive bombers, Zero fighters, and kamikaze approach in waves, exploiting low cloud and sun glare. 4 FM-2 Wildcats from USS Shamrock Bay are vectored in. Marine F4Us Corsairs follow. Laffey's radar tracks targets at roughly 40 to 50 miles, feeding data to gun directors. The number that matters is 6, the 5-inch mounts firing VT proximity-fuzed shells. Combat erupts at 8:30 in the morning. A VAL dives from 10,000 feet, met by 5-inch airbursts. Shrapnel tears its wings. It spirals into the sea. Gunners sustain a rate near 20 rounds per minute per mount as ranges close. 2 kamikaze break through, skimming the waves. The 40mm Bofors engage at 2,000 yards, shredding one. 20mm Oerlikons finish the second as it grazes Laffey's deck. Damage control teams douse sparks. 4 bomb hits strike one, ruptures a fuel line, another disables a 5-inch mount. 6 kamikaze crash aboard crumpling steel and igniting fires. Repair crews seal bulkheads. Radar plots multiple contacts at once despite low-altitude clutter and glare. Laffey endures her Mark 37 fire control and directors still working. The Japanese pilots face a gauntlet. Laffey's radar cues the combat air patrol to disrupt their approach. The 5-inch guns, guided by the Mark 37 with radar Mark 12, 22 fire proximity-fuzed shells that burst within lethal distance of targets, shredding airframes. The 40mm and 20mm guns create a close-in barrier, forcing pilots to weave through curtains of tracer fire. On the bridge, Beckton shifts helm orders to keep guns bearing, dodging dive bombers' release points. The constraint is ammunition and time under attack. Magazines run low as crews keep the belts and hoists moving. Repair parties trained for months rush to patch torn plating and rig hoses, keeping fires from reaching fuel tanks. The adversary's view sharpens at the turning point. Japanese pilots curse the destroyer's radar-directed fire and interceptors breaking their dives. Yet Laffey's gunners hold firm. A third kamikaze, a Zero, aims for the bridge, but catches a 40mm burst at 500 yards, cartwheeling into the sea. Marine Corsairs arrive, their 650 caliber guns chewing through stragglers. LCS L-51 and LCS L-116 pour 40mm fire, splitting the attacker's focus. Laffey's radar operators, sweating in the Combat Information Center, work the scopes through sun glare and sea return to maintain tracks. A near fantail detonation rocks the stern. The rudder jams 26 degrees to port. Damage control isolates flooding within minutes and keeps propulsion answering. By 9:50, the raid slackens. Laffey's crew tallies at least 8 to 9 enemy aircraft destroyed in concert with the CAP. The ship lists slightly fires smoldering, but propulsion holds. Beckton orders damage assessments, while gunners stand ready for stragglers. The long-range air search picture on the order of 75 miles for the destroyer, extended by the Picket net, remains the backbone, tying early detection to fighter intercepts and gun solutions. The cold line cuts through 4 bombs and 6 kamikaze struck, yet the destroyer stays in the fight. Laffey's survival hinges on one cycle: detection, engagement, and damage control repeated without break against a relentless enemy. The question looms: how does a destroyer absorb 4 bombs and 6 kamikaze yet stay afloat? The morning of the 16th of April 1945 rages on, 30 nautical miles north of Okinawa. USS Laffey, battered but defiant, maintains radar picket station number 1 alongside LCSL 51 and LCSL 116. The destroyer's air search picture runs on the order of 75 miles in typical conditions, anchoring the defense and feeding precise bearings to fire control directors. Over 20 Japanese aircraft press their attack across 80 minutes, weaving through bursts of 5-inch proximity-fuzed shells. Commander Frederick Julian Beckton from Laffey's Bridge orchestrates a relentless response. The ship's 6 5-inch, 38 mounts 40mm Bofors and 20mm Oerlikons fire in disciplined sequence, while 4 FM2 Wildcats and Marine F4Us Corsairs harry the attackers from above. The tactical rhythm hinges on coordination. Laffey's radar operators in the Combat Information Center track multiple low-altitude contacts through sun glare and sea return, relaying data to gun crews. 5-inch mounts throw timed and VT-fuzed airbursts at altitude, breaking up dive bomber runs before they align. The 40mm Bofors on Mark 51, directors engage at roughly 2,000 yards, their 4-round clips chewing into low-flying kamikaze. 20mm Oerlikons, manned by crews exposed on deck, take over inside 500 yards, tracers stitching the sky. The number that matters is 6 5-inch mounts, cycling at rates up to 20 rounds per minute per mount. This layered defense forces pilots to jink, spoiling their aim. Japanese pilots in their adversary's moment see only chaos. Radar-directed fire and fighters slice into their approaches, proximity bursts tearing wings mid-dive. A Val aiming for Laffey's stack takes a 5-inch near miss and disintegrates. Another, a Kamikaze Zero, skims the waves but meets 40mm fire at about 1,000 yards, exploding short of the hull. Wildcats from USS Shamrock Bay dive head-on, their 50-caliber guns scattering a formation. Corsairs arriving late chase stragglers, their 6 wing-mounted guns chewing through thin airframes. LCSL 51 and LCSL 116 add 40mm barrages, splitting the attacker's focus. On Laffey, the human toll mounts. 4 bomb hits tear steel, 1 ruptures a fuel line, another disables a 5-inch mount. 6 kamikaze crashes ignite fires, buckling decks. Repair parties drilled for months rush to action. They shore twisted frames, rig hoses, and seal bulkheads to halt flooding. The cold line anchors their effort fires contained within minutes of each hit. Electrical runs battered, but patched keep radars and directors alive. A near fantail detonation and repeated impacts jam the rudder 26 degrees to port. Yet Beckton, calm under pressure, works engines and helm to keep guns bearing. The constraint is ammunition and endurance magazines, and ready-use lockers running low as crews keep belts and hoists moving. The engagement's intensity ebbs by 10 o'clock. Laffey's gunners, sweat-soaked and deafened, tally at least 8 to 9 enemy aircraft downed in concert with the CAP. The air search scope shows no fresh groups forming. Damage control teams extinguish the last fires, though smoke lingers. The ship lists her stern worked, hard by hits and flooding, yet propulsion answers and fire control systems remain intact. The layered defense radar fighters and guns has blunted a raid meant to sink her. Struck by 4 bombs and 6 kamikaze, Laffey stayed afloat and in action. On the 16th of April, 1945, USS Laffey endures at Radar Picket Station number 1, 30 nautical miles north of Okinawa. 4 bomb hits and 6 kamikaze crashes have torn her steel, yet she remains afloat. Commander Frederick Julian Beckton from the battered bridge directs repair parties and gunners with calm precision. The destroyer's air search picture runs on the order of 75 miles, in typical conditions still sweeping for threats as LCSL 51 and LCSL 116 flank her their 40mm guns at the ready. Across 80 minutes, Laffey's layered defense radar fighters and guns has repelled more than 20 Japanese aircraft. Her survival hinges on engineering and discipline. The Alan M. Sumner-class design anchors her resilience. Compartmentation with multiple watertight bulkheads contains flooding from bomb penetrations. Machinery spaces separated and redundantly serviced preserve propulsion despite a twisted propeller shaft. Protected magazines with splinter protection prevent catastrophic detonations. 5-inch, 38 mounts though one is jammed fire VT, proximity-fused shells, directed by the Mark 37 fire control system, whose radars have ridden out blast shocks. The 40mm Bofors on Mark 51 directors and 20mm Oerlikons, battered but functional, maintain close-in defense. The number that matters is 6.6 5-inch mounts, cycling sustained rates of fire that disrupt enemy dives. Damage control honed through months of drills transforms chaos into order. Repair parties wielding shoring timbers and welding torches brace twisted frames. Hoses douse fires sparked by aviation fuel containing them within minutes of each hit. The cold line marks their pace, flooding isolated compartment by compartment. Feed pumps rerouted through auxiliary lines keep boilers alive. Electrical runs patched under flickering lights sustain fire control radars. A blast near the fantail floods a space, but bulkheads hold and pumps gain on the water. The crew's training prevents cascading failure. The adversary's perspective sharpens Japanese pilots, expecting a swift kill, find radar-directed fire and airbursts, shredding their waves at altitude. A kamikaze aiming for Laffey's vitals meets 40mm fire at close range and breaks up short of the hull. Marine F4Us Corsairs, their 650 caliber guns blazing chase stragglers. LCS L-51 and LCS L-116 with 40mm barrages force pilots to split their attacks. Laffey's operators in the Combat Information Center work the scopes through sun glare and sea return, ensuring no surprise. By mid-morning, the raid fades. Laffey's crew, exhausted, counts 32 dead and 71 wounded. At least 8 to 9 enemy aircraft lie in the sea by ship and CAP tallies. The ship listing slightly steams under her own power smoke, still curling from the superstructure. Becton orders damage assessments and ammunition checks. Magazines and ready-use lockers run low. The destroyer's early warning picture, extended by the Picket net, ties detection to survival. Laffey's engineering compartmentation, redundant systems, and disciplined repairs defies the kamikaze's intent. Struck by 4 bombs and 6 kamikaze, she stays afloat and in action. On the 16th of April 1945, USS Laffey stands defiant at Radar Picket Station, number 130 nautical miles north of Okinawa. 4 bomb hits and 6 kamikaze crashes have scarred her hull, yet she fights on. Commander Frederick Julian Becton from the shattered bridge directs gunners and repair teams through choking smoke. The destroyer's air search picture runs on the order of 75 miles in typical conditions, anchoring the defense as LCS L-251 and LCS L-116 to maintain their 40mm barrages. Across 80 minutes, over 20 Japanese aircraft, VAL dive bombers, Zero fighters, and kamikaze have failed to sink her. The myth that a determined kamikaze attack inevitably destroys a destroyer begins to crumble. The turning point rests on coordinated systems. Laffey's radar tracking targets at roughly 40 to 50 miles feeds precise bearings to fire control directors, enabling 5-inch airbursts to break up formations at altitude. Marine F4Us Corsairs, their 650 caliber guns blazing scatter stragglers before they align for dives. The 6 5-inch 38 mounts cycling at sustained rates up to about 20 rounds per minute per mount with VT fuses create lethal patterns that force pilots to jink, spoiling their aim. 40mm Bofors tracking at 2,000 yards and 20mm Oerlikons firing at 500 yards form a deadly close-in barrier. The number that matters is 6 5-inch mounts disrupting terminal attack geometry. The adversary's perspective crystallizes Japanese pilots banking on surprise-find radar-directed fire tearing airframes apart. A Zero diving for Laffey's bridge meets a 5-inch proximity burst at altitude and disintegrates. Another skimming the waves takes 40mm fire at about 1,000 yards, exploding short of the hull. FM-2 Wildcats from USS Shamrock Bay vectored early rake formations with 50 caliber guns breaking their cohesion. LCS 51, and LCSL 100-16, their 40mm guns pounding force pilots to split their runs. Laffey's fire control radars maintain relentless target tracks through sun glare and sea return. On Laffey, the human cost is stark. 32 crewmen lie dead, 71 wounded, yet gunners and repair teams hold their posts. A kamikaze grazes the superstructure, igniting a fuel fire, but hoses quench it within minutes. Repair parties sweating under torn plating shore bulkheads and patch electrical runs, keeping boilers and radars alive. Beckton shifting the helm to keep guns bearing dodges, another attacker that crashes short into the sea. The constraint is endurance crews deafened and burned, fight past exhaustion to seal breaches and douse flames. By mid-morning the sky clears. Laffey's gunners faces blackened tally, at least 8 to 9 enemy aircraft destroyed, confirmed in concert with Corsair pilots. The ship, listing from a flooded compartment, steams at reduced speed, her fantail low. Damage control teams extinguish the last smouldering fires, though twisted steel litters her decks. Beckton, scanning the horizon, orders ammunition redistributed to the 5-inch mounts. The destroyer's early warning picture, tied to fighter intercepts and gun solutions, remains the backbone of survival. The kamikaze's promise, a single strike to sink a destroyer, lies broken. Laffey's layered defense, robust design, and disciplined crew have kept her in action despite 4 bombs and 6 kamikaze. On the 16th of April 1945, USS Laffey clings to survival at Radar Picket Station No. 1, 30 nautical miles north of Okinawa. 4 bomb hits and 6 kamikaze crashes have left her decks scarred, yet she steams on. Commander Frederick Julian Beckton, stationed on the battered bridge, refuses to abandon ship while any gun can fire. The destroyer's air search picture runs on the order of 75 miles in typical conditions, sweeping the horizon as LCSL 51 and LCSL 100-16 maintain their 40mm support. Across 80 minutes, more than 20 Japanese aircraft have tested Laffey's resolve. Her crew's discipline under relentless strain holds the line. Beckton's leadership anchors the fight. From the bridge, he issues crisp orders, shifting the helm to keep the 6 5-inch 38 mounts bearing on targets. His voice steady through the din of explosions, rallies, gunners, and repair teams. 5-inch crews faces blackened by smokefire VT-fuzed shells under the Mark 37 fire control system, breaking up dives at altitude. 40mm Bofors gunners tracking through Mark 51 directors engage at roughly 2,000 yards, their bursts tearing at kamikaze. 20mm Oerlikon teams exposed on deck take over inside 500 yards, tracers flashing across the sky. The number that matters is 6 5-inch mounts anchoring the defense. Below decks, repair parties battle chaos. A blast near the fantail floods a compartment, but welders and shoring teams bring it under control within minutes. The cold line defines their urgency. Fires knocked down swiftly before they can spread. Hoses snake across twisted plating, dousing aviation fuel blazes. Electricians crawling through smouldering spaces splice cables to keep boilers and radars alive. A kamikaze's crash buckles a bulkhead, but pumps and patches hold back the sea. The crew, drilled for months, moves with precision, their hands burned and bleeding but steady. The adversary's view sharpens. Japanese pilots, aiming for Laffey's heart, find radar-directed fire and airbursts tearing at their approaches. A valve targeting the bridge takes 40mm fire at about 1,000 yards and spirals into the sea. FM-2 Wildcats from USS Shamrock Bay vectored early rake formations with 50 caliber guns. Marine F4Us Corsairs chase stragglers splitting runs. LCS-L 51 and LCS-L 116 keep their 40mm guns pounding, forcing pilots to veer off. Laffey's operators work the scopes through sun glare and sea return, ensuring no attacker slips through unseen. The constraint is human: 32 dead, 71 wounded, yet the crew fights on. By mid-morning the raid has spent its fury. Laffey's gunners' ears ringing confirm at least 8 to 9 enemy aircraft destroyed in concert with the CAP, their wreckage scattered across the waves. The ship lists slightly, her propulsion strained but holding. Beckton scanning damage reports, orders ammunition, redistributed magazines, and ready-use lockers running low. Repair teams exhausted shore up the last breaches, their tools clanging against warped steel. The destroyer's early warning picture, tying detection to fighter intercepts and gun solutions, remains the backbone of survival. The crew's resolve, Becton's calm, the gunner's accuracy, the repairmen's speed has defied the kamikaze's intent. The toll is heavy. Corpsmen move among the wounded, bandaging burns and splinting fractures under flickering lights. Lookouts' eyes red from smoke sweep the horizon for stragglers. Laffey's 6 5-inch mounts, though battered, stand ready with what remains. Becton voice unwavering orders the ship to hold station, knowing the radar picket line protects the fleet off Hagushi beaches. The crew, battered but unbroken, steadies for the next blow. Their discipline, forged through training and tempered in fire, has kept Laffey afloat despite 4 bombs and 6 kamikaze. On the 17th of April, 1945, USS Laffey lies at anchor off Okinawa, her hull battered but afloat. 4 bomb hits and 6 kamikaze crashes endured on the 16th have left scars across her decks. Commander Frederick Julian Becton, overseeing repairs from the bridge, ensures the ship remains seaworthy. Taken under tow to Karama-Reto for emergency work, Laffey then steams for Saipan, arriving on the 27th. LCSL 51 and LCSL 100-16, her steadfast companions in the fight, return to their duties. The destroyer's air search picture, on the order of 75 miles in typical conditions, had tied her survival to early warning. Laffey's ordeal, 80 minutes against more than 20 Japanese aircraft, earns her a lasting name. The fight's toll is etched in steel and blood. 32 crewmen lie dead, 71 wounded, their sacrifice, marked by twisted bulkheads and shattered mounts. At least 8 to 9 enemy aircraft lie in the sea by ship, and cap tallies testament to Laffey's gunners and Marine F4Us corsairs. The 6 5-inch 38 mounts under the Mark 37 fire control system with VT-fuses anchored the defense. 40mm Bofors and 20mm Oerlikons sealed the close-in fight. Compartmentation and splinter-protected magazines, with separated machinery spaces and redundant services, preserved the ship when fires and flooding threatened. Laffey's journey continues. From Saipan she sails east, patched but scarred. Shipyard workers on the west coast read the story in her plates and frames, watertight subdivision and redundancy that defied 4 bombs and 6 suicide impacts. By late 1945, repairs restore her, though the crew's losses linger. For her stand on the 16th, Laffey receives the Presidential Unit Citation. Among sailors, she is already the ship that would not die. The adversary's intent to break the Okinawa warning line lies broken. Japanese pilots, their waves unraveled by radar-directed fire and airbursts, could not force the kill. Early warning, feeding directors and fighters, close-in guns denying the last seconds, crews drilled to contain damage the chain held. Today, Laffey rests at Patriots Point in Charleston. Her decks a quiet echo of that morning. 4 bomb hits, 6 kamikaze, 32 killed, 71 wounded. A destroyer that stayed in action when it should have gone down. On the 17th of April, 1945, USS Laffey, scarred but afloat, anchors off Okinawa, her trial at Radar Picket Station No. 1 complete. 4 bomb hits and 6 kamikaze crashes endured on the 16th have tested her Alan M. Sumner-class design and her crew's resolve. Commander Frederick Julian Becton, overseeing repairs, reflects on the 80-minute battle that defied the kamikaze's intent. The destroyer's air search picture, on the order of 75 miles in typical conditions, proved critical, tying early warning to survival. LCSL 51 and LCSL 116, their 40mm guns now stilled, resume their patrols. Laffey's stand, repelling more than 20 Japanese aircraft, hardens the Navy's confidence in radar pickets and layered air defense. The engagement reveals the power of integrated systems. Laffey's radar tracking targets at roughly 40 to 50 miles fed precise data to 6 5-inch 38 mounts under the Mark 37 fire control system, whose VT-fuzed airbursts broke up dives at altitude. 40mm Bofors, engaging around 2,000 yards, and 20mm Oerlikons, firing inside 500 yards, formed a lethal close-in barrier. Marine F4Us Corsairs and FM-2 Wildcats from USS Shamrock Bay scattered formations before they could align for terminal runs. The number that matters is 6 5-inch mounts anchoring the layered defense. The adversary's perspective lingers. Japanese pilots, banking on overwhelming force, found radar-directed fire and timed airbursts tearing at their waves mid-dive. A Val aiming for Laffey's vitals met 40mm fire at about 1,000 yards and disintegrated short of the hull. LCS L-51 and LCS L-116. Their 40mm barrages unrelenting forced pilots to split their attacks. Laffey's operators worked the scopes through sun glare and sea return to keep tracks alive. The Kamikaze's promise a single strike to sink a destroyer faltered against this coordinated gauntlet. Laffey's survival turns on design and discipline. Watertight subdivision and splinter-protected magazines, limited flooding and secondary explosions, separated machinery spaces and redundant services kept propulsion answering. Repair parties, drilling hoses and shoring timbers through heat and smoke knocked down fires and held the water at bay before damage could cascade. The Synergy early detection fighter vectoring layered guns and practiced damage control offers a blueprint for countering massed suicide attacks. The human cost remains stark. 32 dead and 71 wounded mark the crew's sacrifice, their effort reflected in at least 8 to 9 enemy aircraft destroyed by ship and cap tallies. Becton's steadiness under fire and the crew's training turned engineering into action. The 6 5-inch mounts now silent at anchor stand as emblems of precision and endurance. At Saipan on the 27th, crews study her battered plates and frames, a testament to design choices that kept a destroyer in action when it should have gone down. Laffey's lessons echo beyond Okinawa. Her stand at Station No. 1, shielding the fleet off Hagushi beaches, proves that radar pickets backed by proximity fuses fighter cover and disciplined repair parties can endure. As Laffey steams toward full repairs, her scars speak of survival. The horizon is calm for now, but the example endures technology, training and resolve joined to blunt the Kamikaze's knife.